everyone, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell, I am on vacation. I'm in my room actually where I'm staying. I wanted to film a video getting ready for the weekend that I'm actually going to be returning. So I actually have an exciting update for you guys. I took my stuff just in case. I did finish some things and can film while on location. So yeah, I have an exciting update for you guys. As you guys know, I have been reading the manga A Silent Voice. So this is a spoilery kind of summation of everything that I've read. So if you've not read the manga, this may not be the video for you. I'm not going to go into every single solitary detail of every single volume, but there will be some spoilers given. So if that's not something that you're interested in, then you may want to click out of this video. But if you're a new subscriber or a new person visiting my channel and you like today's content, please consider subscribing. If you're a returning viewer, thank you, and continue watching. All right, you guys. All right, so the first one, I do not have the first two volumes with me. I've already read the first two and they're at my home, so I didn't bring them with me, but I do have the other volumes with me right here. So I do have them on my phone. So the first volume, they're all A Silent Voice. This is volume 1. This is where you are introduced to the two main characters. One, the male character, is Shoya, and pardon me if I do missay the names. If you've been on my channel, you know foreign names or names in general, I missay. But, so your main character, the boy character, is probably easier to see on a different volume. This is Shoya, and the female lead, this is Shoko. Okay, so you are introduced to them. Like I said, this is in, hopefully my phone it will autofocus, we're hoping. You're introduced to them in volume 1. They are in 6th grade. And this is where Shoko, she moves in. She transfers into the school. If you have children, or you remember back in your school days when you know students move in, that is a really rough time for students, both for class members who have been together for a very long time, or for the new students who are moving into a school. That is hard for people in general. One, to make friends with new people, and two, moving in and wondering, are people going to be your friends? This is exacerbated even more so because Shoko, she is deaf. She cannot hear. Even, I think at the start of the novel, she doesn't have hearing aids. At the time, I believe it's been almost a year since I've read it. I know partway through the book she does get a set of hearing aids, and that becomes a contention. But she does use a notebook. I think she calls it a notebook of a communication or something to that effect, to handwrite out notes to communicate with people. But that's still a hard way to communicate with people, because if she's not looking directly at people, she can't read their lips to know what they're saying. So she gets left out a lot of things, or she's having to write a lot of notes, trying to pass it to people and then get communication back. So it sets her apart from a lot. And then of course bullying happens. She does try to speak at one point in time, because she can't hear, she can't tell if she's speaking correctly, and a lot of things go on. And Shoya, he comes from a single parent household. His mom is a hairdresser, and he's going down a whole lot of difficulties himself. And he does a lot of very risky behaviors, trying to impress his friends, his buddies that he hangs out with. So he's very well known for these very risky behaviors. And so when she comes into the picture, a lot of things go on. He ends up targeting her for a lot of his pranks that he does, and a lot of others kind of go in on it, and then he kind of goes too far. His classmates then turn on him, and a lot of messages are written. He thinks the messages are written on her desk, but it turns out at the end it's written on his, and she ends up transferring out because of the extensive bullying that does take place directed towards her. It's a very hard manga to read, but I think the series in general is worth the read. It needs to be read. I think, like I've been saying a lot on my channel, it needs to be read by a lot of people. It gives a huge insight into the subtleties of bullying and the effects of the bullying on everyone that's involved, not only the people that are being bullied, but the people around them, the parents, the other people, classmates also, the effects on them as well. So yeah, it is worth the read. I cannot advocate enough for this series to be read. For middle schoolers, high schoolers, it needs to be read. Parents, definitely, I think I would highly recommend for parents to read this. Read it with your children. Be something you read together. Definitely talk about this. These are definitely, this age range definitely needs something you guys could read together. They're quick reads. I mean, I read multiple volumes in a day, but it's something I think needs to be highly talked about. It's prevalent in all of our schools, especially with the online component now. Cyberbullying is a huge thing. I think this would be definitely a tool to discuss and open up conversations with your child. I highly recommend it. So that kickstarts it off in their 6th grade. They call it elementary school. And that's with volume 1. 5 years later, this comes in. You meet up with them with, again, Shoya and then also Shoko. He makes it a mission to find her. He's isolated. All of his friends, dropped him. Didn't want to have anything to do with him when it came to light what all had gone on with him, what he did to her. He took on the sole blame for everything that went on, even though others had also contributed to the fact of what went on with her. They weren't to the extent that he had participated, so he was shunned, essentially. So it increases on him the effects that his bullying went on. It actually had an extreme effect on his character. She did move on. She went to another school. She transferred into a more, I think they called it a sign language, more of a sign language school, more for the deaf type of school. They didn't really talk more about it as much. I don't know if the sign language school was an after school or if she went to just a separate school in general. It didn't really go as much. I know sign language was a part of it, but she's also at another school as well. So I don't know if I didn't really pick up on that as much, or they didn't go into as much detail about that. It was more about their relationship in general. In volume 2, again, it's about him trying to reach out to her, trying to reconnect with her. He was kind of not able to make as much connection with her there. She ran away from him a lot, again, with all that was going on. A lot of doors were closed to him at first. Can't remember. It's been a while. It was earlier last week when I read this one. I believe that's when you're introduced. I think you might, in this book, may have been introduced to Shoko's younger sibling. At the time, I believe we're introduced as the sibling as being a younger brother. And he's, again, still trying to reconnect with her, again, being shut out at the sign language school. And you see him trying to make reparations with his own mother because he stole money from her, I believe. So he's trying to pay it back. And then in this book, towards the end, you are shown, or about halfway through, not towards the end, about halfway through this one, you see as he's trying to make all of these apologies, all of these reparations to everyone that he has hurt. It's very, very subtle, and I didn't make the connections at the time. This is how subtle these messages are. And these signs are. This is actually in reality how subtle these things are. I didn't pick up on it, and I'm a very advanced reader. And yeah, he was actually about to commit suicide. And the parents, laid into him about that. It's like, you can't pay this back to me and then kill yourself. You can't do that. That was shocking to me, again, how subtle these signs are of what this character was actually doing, because he feels this much guilt about everything that he has done to Shoko from 6th grade. And this is 5 years later. This is not just, within a few months. This has been eating away at him for so long. And he's still trying to make up for everything that he has done, not only to this girl, but to his own family, to his mother, who has sacrificed so much for him. And he's paid her back. He has finally earned enough to pay back everything that he has done and taken and all of that. And she burns this money. It's like, you cannot do this. I will burn every time you earn up everything that you owe me. I will burn it because you cannot pay me off and then end your life. And they have this huge heart-to-heart, come back together, and they are slowly mending their relationship. I mean, I almost sat there and cried when that went on. But that is how subtle all of this is. This is real life. This goes on in real life, these subtle messages. If you're not aware of what's going on with you and your child, that's how subtle things are. If you're not paying attention, you will miss these signs. And it was so heartbreaking to see that and to go into that. And the story again continues on. He's slowly starting to communicate with her. They're slowly starting to create a bond and starting slowly to repair things, getting some communication going on between Shoko and him. And it's still a rocky ending a little bit between these two. It's not a firm foundation, but he still sees a glimmer of hope. After, the reparations with his parent, the coming out, that's what I was doing. But now I see that I can earn this back, but earn it to live instead of doing this to then end. He sees some light now at the end that I can repair my relationships, but do it to then live. I have some hope here. So he's starting to go on this journey that he can have hope in his life, that he is worth living. Things are worth to live. There's some glimmer, there is some hope. He is on his redemption arc from where we met him at the beginning of Volume 1. But it was a hard read. There was, again, it's a tough read. I wasn't expecting a lot of these. But there are, like I said, a lot of trigger warnings going on in this series. Like I said, the bullying, and then we got suicide going on, which goes hand in hand with a lot of these hard emotions that these kids, go through. All right. Then we get into, again, they're in high school. They're continuing their journey. So he's still continuing. This is, again, Volume 3. Hopefully you guys can see it. I don't have my normal light, so maybe a little bit darker. So in Volume 3, he starts making friends. Again, he's been a loner since 6th grade. They are in high school. At this point, he meets Tomohiro, I believe is the character's name. And this guy, Tomohiro, let me see if I can find a picture of him. So this is Tomohiro on the first page. So he is not the typical guy that Shoya normally hangs out with. He's very vocal. He doesn't really take no for an answer. So he kind of pushes his way into Shoya's life. He wants to make a video, to be a filmmaker. So he tells Shoya, get all your friends and get them all together. They're going to be their actors. They're going to be supporting cast. They're going to do all of these things, which then forces, because in the first 2 volumes, Shoya doesn't have friends. So it's actually forcing him to really think and to make an attempt to then reach out to his old friends and try to repair the damage that he had done back in 6th grade in elementary, to reach out to these people and see, is there a way that he can make a difference and try to undo the harm that he's done. And in his mind, he's trying to give back to Shoko the childhood that she really didn't have because of him. And that's kind of his reasoning in his brain, that he's trying to give her the friendships that he feels like he has disrupted back in an elementary school in 6th grade. So he goes on, they're communicating through basically email and text, because that seems to be an easier form of communication. He is actually forcing himself to learn sign language so he can communicate with her. So that's their adventure more or less in volume 3. A lot of things go on in this volume. There's some miscommunication going on in this. And you're introduced to Naoko and the kind of competitiveness of Naoko. And she is a hard character to really get to know and get to like, because she is so competitive and she really doesn't care for Shoko. She never has. And you kind of get into her mindset of why she doesn't, but you don't really find out until the last volume of why she has it out kind of for Shoko. So there's a lot of back and forth, and it's basically learning that you can't change people if they're not ready to be changed. And you kind of start to see the development of kind of a romantic kind of development between these two, that Shoko is starting to develop feelings for Shoya. But because he still feels so much guilt about what he did to her, he's not picking up on these cues. So again, they're still miscommunicating. There's still this barrier between them, so he doesn't pick up on it. So it's sad, and that plays a huge part on what's going on between them. That barrier, they're still trying to fix it, but it's still a huge problem between them. They're still miscommunicating. She tries to tell him she loves him, but because she spoke it out loud and she doesn't hear the way she's articulating things, he doesn't understand what she says. So she ends up running away from him because she knows he didn't understand what she had to say to him. So that's kind of what went on in volume 3. Again, trying to repair relationships. It didn't quite go the way they wanted it to. So in volume 4, this is the park. A lot of things went on. Again, trying to force a relationship between all this group of people, trying to get them back together. Some are starting to get together. They're starting to voice things that went on. Again, we had a confrontation between Shoko and Naoko on the Ferris wheel. We think we had finally figured out in volume 3 and 4 that the younger sibling of Shoko was actually a sister. Finding out, again, their friendships are starting to break down again. Again, they're still working on that video. And then there is another death. That's right. There was a death in the family, which again, Shoko still didn't fess up, didn't try to, again, explain herself. She's still having some issues. I think there was a fight. Is this the book that there was the fight and the breakdown between everyone? I don't remember if that was this one, but I do know, no. I get them confused because I read them so fast back to back. Again, there's been some fighting going on within the group about certain things, about who's doing what on the film. Again, there was the fight at the park. Naoko's trying to get Shoya to talk to his couple of his friends back from 6th grade. He kind of blows up at it, and then he has the realization that she may be trying to do the same thing that he's doing with Shoko. So he's trying to make amends with her about that. Then finding out that the grandmother of Shoko and Yurizuku, and the younger sister, Yuzuru, I think is how you say her name. There was a death in the family. The grandmother, she ends up passing away. Then we have a flashback to the mother, to Shoko's mother, and back when Shoko was 3, and you get the information of what went on and how she ends up a single mother. And I'm not going to spoil all of that, but that was heart-wrenching to read, that how all of that came about and why Yuzuru is so protective of Shoko, even though she is the younger sister. So yeah, that's volume 4. Again, trying to mend things and their ups and downs and that. Volume 5. A lot of things come to a head in volume 5. Again, with the film, I think they may be on summer break in this one. They tried to go back to the elementary school. One of the other side characters, one in the friend group, kind of comes in. Chatiko, I think maybe his name. He tries to befriend Shoya. He has a very strong dislike for anyone who is being picked on, because he himself was picked on when he was younger. And again, that's kind of mentally sets off Shoya, because he knows he was a bully himself, and he fears that if it comes out that Chatiko, that he's going to then turn against him, and that everyone's going to turn against him again, just like they did back in 6th grade, and then he's going to be a loner again. Of course, all of that, I believe, does come to a head in this book. And then the grandmother actually does pass in this book, which I was thinking was happening in volume 4, but that doesn't. But we know she, I think, is becoming sick in that book. But in this one, she actually, Shoko's grandmother does end up passing, and they go to the wake. Shoya actually ends up walking him to the funeral, if I'm not mistaken. Again, they have this huge blow up. Again, Shoko, thinks it's her fault that it does, that they broke up. Again, he tries to explain, what went on. Again, she takes it. I don't know if she misinterprets what he has to say. Again, the side characters, he tries to explain to them. It's like, you guys did the exact same thing. So he was trying to talk to, I think is the character Mickey. He was talking to her when all of this blow up happens, like, how is standing by, laughing and giggling when all the bullying is taking place, how is that any less worse than actually doing the bullying and saying the mean comments? And if you stop and think about it, that is actually enabling the bully to continue to actually bully. If they're getting the reaction that they're wanting, they're going to keep doing it. So in essence, Shoya is actually right in this instance, but Mickey's character didn't want to own up to what she was doing, and she continued to lash out, which is again kind of wanted to play the victim character, and turns the group against Shoya, and that enabled the other male character, Chatiko, I think is his name. Shoya said, if you wanted to go on and hit me like you told me earlier, for the one who had bullied Shoko, go ahead and go on and do it. And of course, that character did. This all adds up, into, again, them all going away, going their separate ways. The video that Tomohiro went on pause, they kind of all disbanded, no longer producing it anymore. Heart-wrenching activity went on. People are trying to get in touch with him. There's an event taking place down, I think it was fireworks, that they were going to go watch. Yuzuru finally got them to go with her and his mom down to watch them. But it was, I was cried. And I'm almost in tears again, because Shoko again took the blame for it, and again, she had walked away saying that she needed to go study for an exam, and tried to ease his mind and told him to go and enjoy the rest of the fireworks, and that she's just going to go study. And for whatever reason, he felt something was off, and he went there. He, got the key from Year Zero and went to go check on her. And he found her standing on a ledge. And that's where the book ended. So if he hadn't gone there, hadn't listened to an instinct, and that's where we pick up in Volume 6. Again, the words that we choose to say, and if we don't learn to listen, leads to these types of things. Again, if we don't learn to talk and voice, and that's what a silent voice is, they are silently interpreting and taking in and not talking about things in a healthy way. That's what this series is about, and that's why it is so important that as many people as possible can read this series. And I know these are fictional characters, but it's so important to listen and observe and know your kids, even though they're in their teens and they may hate you for it. So you pick up Volume 6, and Shoya does manage to grab her as she's falling. Barely. He ends up saving her, but he ends up falling. He does land in, I think, some water several floors below. He ends up in the hospital, unconscious for multiple days. I don't remember how long the extent of his unconsciousness is. He is hurt. He does have some physical damage to his body, but he does save her. Of course, his classmates that don't know him but do remember his past stunts thought it was just another of him wanting to be famous on the internet for his exploits of dangerous pranks. Even though Tomohiro tries to say no, he saved a girl without, going into what all, they didn't believe him. And it goes on, Naoko, she's become very possessive of him, and you find out why she's had such a vendetta against Shoko, because she's actually had a lot of feelings for Shoya all the way back from 6th grade. She's had a torch for him. She blames Shoko for the isolation Shoya went into. She blames her for everything that went on. She believes that if she hadn't come in, transferred into their school, this would not have happened, even though he was going down a wrong path before she even came into the scene. But she blamed her. So you get an insight into Naoko's character. But again, if characters aren't ready, or if people aren't ready to change, to grow, then you can't change them. Because they're not ready. And then Shoya finds that out as the series continues. In this volume, Shoko, she takes ownership of the movie, tries to get everyone back involved, her and Tomohiro, tries, gets everyone back, kind of kicking and screaming back together, and they kind of, resolve a lot of their issues and talks through a lot of things, and they resolve a lot, and she takes on the task of getting everyone back together, and she takes on that role. So I was very proud to see that she did that, because that is a huge step for her. Again, communication is not her strong point, so she did want to do that and to start mending those fences with everyone as well. And a lot went through, a lot of talking, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment came out, and then a lot of healing started in this book, in this volume. Kind of where this volume kind of goes on. And then our last volume. So Volume 7 sees the completion of the video that Tomohiro started. It was not very well received by the competition. A lot of it they got very negative critiques on. But then they said, they came back together, the group. At first they were kind of down on themselves, but then they kind of upspend it. This is just part-time things. This was not our best work. We can do better than this. And so they had a very positive spin on it after they had that first negative kind of, we were terrible, this was that. But it took them a moment. Once they spilled the negative, then they got more so the positive spin on it. So I was proud of them for that. There was a lot of mending of fences between both Shoya and Shoko's parents, their two mothers, that had been broken down back from the 6th grade when they had their falling out, as well as the parents. You see that Shoya has finally been able to pick his head up, to stand proud, to look people in the eye, whether they're going to have a good reaction to him or bad reaction. He's able to finally, be confident enough to be able to do that, because he has his group of friends who are going to stand by him no matter what. And that was a long time in coming. And you see Shoya actually helping Yuzuru start studying and going to school to make her sister proud. And he actually is finally figured out he wants to become a hairdresser like his mother, to take over the salon, just like Shoko. She's going away to Tokyo to work with a deaf hairstylist to become that. So they're both doing the same thing, but not together, but for different reasons. So it does end in a very positive way. They do mend and they do talk about everything. They resolve all of their differences. It was an emotional ride through all 7 volumes. Will definitely read it again and see what I missed and the clues that I missed along the way. But again, definitely worth the read. Definitely need to read it if you have children, teens. Definitely be something considered to read together and talk about. Great discussions to talk about, especially at this age group, middle school and high school age. We do that. But yeah, now that I've had an emotional breakdown somewhat on camera again, I don't do that very often, but this series is definitely worth it, and it's something. Being a teacher, I don't have children of my own, but I do, have my, students I have every year. Something I'm definitely passionate about, because I do teach this age group, and it's definitely prevalent in our schools and with our kids, especially with cyberbullying. It's so much easier to type things out on computers because you don't have that person face to face to see the emotional impact that our words have. But yeah, if you made it through this spoilery review of this manga series, let me know your thoughts down below. Have you read it? Would it be something that you're interested in picking up? I definitely enjoyed it. It is an emotional impacting series. Like I said, I definitely will reread it sometime in the future. But until my next video, you guys, happy reading. Bye, guys.